I remember the return ticket was from Amsterdam back to Mexico, and I was in London, and I just thought like, well, in Barcelona you learn to say goodbye. We kind of stop looking into what's outside because we're so caught up with our worries, our bills. I like pushing those limits. Just a playful nature in me.
We're gonna talk about immigration experience. Have you moved here? How was life? How is everything going right now? When you moved, was like the vibe and everything?
Of course.
So, nice. I first wanted to ask you, what was the idea of moving to Barcelona? Like, how did it appear in your head? When was it? And you're like, I need to move from Mexico to Barcelona. I need to change like a little bit of my life. What was it?
Sure.
About?
Well, my life in Mexico was very different.
Okay.
I studied chemical engineering. I was like a straight A student. I was like by the book.
Yeah.
But I never really felt like that was me fully. And I mean, I'm very fortunate as well that I have Spanish ancestry.
Yeah.
My grandma was from Spain. She's a Civil War refugee, so she grew up in Mexico. So it makes you think like all the circumstances in someone's life, like all the past.
Yeah.
It all trickles down into that. So I was able to get the Spanish passport. Wow. However, my whole life was in Mexico, studied and everything. But I needed a change because I finished my studies. I was in my 9-to-5 job in finance. So it was like office life.
That's completely different from the lifestyle you have right now.
Very different. Kind of balanced now, but we'll get into that. But basically it was that I always felt since I was studying, I wanted to get out of Mexico to see new places. And I wanted to take that leap just to adventure. So basically it all sums up to after a few years working in Mexico City, the stable life and everything by the book, I just went like, nah. I had a holiday to Amsterdam.
Okay.
2 weeks. I had saved money and I was working in a startup in Mexico City, and it started to go like, I was not comfortable anymore.
No, not the
So I just quit that. I grabbed a backpack and I thought instead of 2 weeks, I'm just gonna stay.
So you stayed in Amsterdam?
No, I traveled.
You traveled around Europe. How long was this gap year? Let's say not a year. How long was it?
This was 4 or 5 months.
Oh, that's good.
With my backpack and my savings.
Backpacking around Europe.
And then, well, my return ticket was like 2 weeks after I started the trip. This was exactly like 8 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
It's a while. And I remember the return ticket was from Amsterdam back to Mexico, and I was in London, and I just thought like, well,
oh well, I guess not happening.
I'm not making it to the airport anymore, so and that turned into 4 or 5 months where I was just traveling around Europe.
Did you enjoy this time a lot? Was it like a relief after a corporate job?
I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. I think just challenging that status quo and jumping into adventure. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And it wasn't easy because I remember saying goodbye to my family and everything.
That's always hard, saying goodbye to the loved ones and leaving like the safe place where you had basically everything. You had a stable job, and then like, let's dive into adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Also, at that point in my life, I was happy in Mexico City. It was not because I was fully tired, but I did want some adventure.
Okay.
I did want, and I thought I have that passport.
You had an opportunity to travel. Yeah, that's true.
I just left, and
Did you do it all by yourself, or was it someone with you? Because it's always easier, to have some support and friends, or couples, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever, like traveling with you. But were you completely by yourself? That's fully. A solo trip, basically.
Yeah, solo trip. It was when I arrived. I was completely by myself. I was immersed into...
So Amsterdam by yourself, all of this trip plan. But did you know like any people in there? Some friends who were like waiting for you, meeting?
Not in
No?
Amsterdam.
Not in Amsterdam.
I had friends living. One of my best friends was living here in Barcelona, and one of my best friends was living in London.
Okay.
So at some point, I did visit them and stayed a bit longer. And actually, visiting this friend in the middle of my trip here in Barcelona was also like a decision that made me like, oh, this city is great.
Okay, so it was like Amsterdam, London, some other cities around Europe.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'm gonna settle down in Barcelona. So how did this idea appear? What attracted you? Not exactly.
No,
okay.
no. It was so weird because when I was planning my trip back in Mexico, I just put as the last city Barcelona.
Okay.
I had like a little bit of a
Plan.
Like I'm gonna do this, that. That went a bit sideways. It was a bit different when you come, because I was traveling by bus or cheap flights, and sometimes you have to accommodate to other stuff.
Yeah.
But it was actually towards the end of my trip. And by end, I mean that I was running out of money.
Okay.
I was really running out of money. I was sitting in Croatia. I remember I was in Zagreb like, it's been fun, but what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Like I got some money left, but not much, and I have no plan. Absolutely no plan. I was in a bench in Zagreb like, what the fuck am I gonna do?
That sounds adventurous.
Yeah. And another friend of mine was coaching an American football team in Valencia.
Okay.
So he called me. He was, come play. We played together. I used to play American football when I was younger in Mexico. And he told me, come play and we can give you housing.
Okay, that's
so
good.
You can settle a bit and see what's going on.
Settle down.
Yeah, I got to Valencia and I tore my ACL in the first week training because I was not prepared to jump into a sport like that.
Ouch.
So I had surgery, I was in crutches, I had no money.
That's a good start in Spain, I guess. Like, amazing how Spain is treating me. I got a surgery. Came without money, amazing.
Yeah, I was there like, oh my God, like life was here, oh, backpacking, everything's beautiful. And then like, what the hell am I gonna do? And I was insured by the team, luckily, but the insurance only covered Spain. So after a little while in Valencia, I was trying to find a job. I was going to English teaching academies with my crutches. I thought maybe that gave some pity,
like,
maybe that worked.
Can you please help me? But come on, I have the crutches.
Please help me, like I know how to speak English and Spanish. I was also applying on LinkedIn because I have some experience on finance and stuff. So it was more like that. Like I was just throwing online this and that. It was a tough period. It was like a test of resilience and patience. And my friend in Barcelona told me, he's one of my best friends, he told me, I have a spare room. Come to Barcelona. Like there's more opportunities than in Valencia. I had already liked the city. The insurance could cover my rehab.
Yeah, it's still Spain, so.
And I got a job offer.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
What was the job? What was your first job in Spain, basically?
Finance analysis. I was doing that back in Mexico.
So you kind
Office
of
job.
returned to that.
Exactly.
Slightly different environment.
Yeah. It was like, well, I need the money. So, but everything fell into place here. That's the...
How long did you stay in this job?
Like 9 months. It felt like 5 years.
Oh, okay.
It was horrible.
Yeah, but I mean, this job with like a lot of calculation and stuff, analysis, that's, you just dive in there and not coming out, let's say. Yeah, it is very, very complicated.
Yeah, and it was also like the job itself, it was a very bad environment on top of that. It felt like going back to the 80s. There was a lot of people crying after meetings, managers all stressed. It was just like a...
That's very toxic.
Yeah,
that's
super.
That's like bad.
Super toxic.
But I'm surprised see this in Barcelona because I've never... Yeah. Well, I mean, I did hear about some of this experience, but now, like in our century, that's rare. And that was like 8 years ago, 7 years ago. So that's, wow, that's surprising to me that this still exists.
it did happen. It was horrible, but I needed the money.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you're tied to it. I was
stable,
settling.
sort of.
Yeah. On the other hand, I was living in a great place. Like I was living with one of my best friends, and we were also. It was four of us. Another Colombian girl and a Swiss guy who are up like until they now live in Switzerland. They got married.
Oh, that's so cute.
But we were like a family. So the house aspect of coming here when I got to Barcelona, I think was one of the luckiest ways that you can come to a new city.
Yeah, you just stay with your friend and they have spare room.
Yeah, I think it's so difficult. I hear so many stories of people that have moved 5-6 times.
Yeah.
They're in toxic households. I mean, in these 8 years, I've had people I don't get along with living in the same place, which is normal. But initially, to settle, it was such a good experience. We all took care of each other. We hung out together. We had dinner together.
That's cute.
It was
you had
great.
like a little family in there.
It was, yeah. It was a family.
Now you don't live together. Now you all alone.
No.
Like they got separated. Everyone. Well, I mean, they moved to Switzerland. Your friend.
Yeah, well, my friend now, my best friend, he now has a kid. He lives in.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, he lives south of Barcelona, like a train ride. He's in Sant Cugat. The other couple live in near Zurich, so they're in Switzerland.
That's also a pretty place.
So yeah, I think that's the nature of the city as well.
It is. Barcelona has many people who come and go, so you kind of need to also used to it that you can become best friend with someone who maybe eventually is going to leave, especially if they come like here for job, for studies. It might end at some day, but you still keep good at like in touch with these people.
Yeah, that's the hardest part of living here. One of the hardest parts is you learn to say goodbye. Somebody told me that. In Barcelona, you learn to say goodbye. And it is powerful because you're finding yourself, you're immersed in another country, another culture. We are a very international city, for better and for worse, for the locals or whatever. Like it is what it is. It is a city that attracts people from everywhere, and it has a high quality of life in many things.
Is it very different from Mexico, like quality of life and lifestyle? I mean, you came here speaking the same language, so in terms of language barrier, it wasn't a problem for you.
No.
But in terms of culture and like lifestyle, is it very different from the place you used to live?
Yeah, it is.
Very?
It is different. I wouldn't say to an extreme of like comparing a Latin American person with someone from Scandinavia, perhaps. We are closer for historical reasons and for many things. There is an affinity, of course, but it is different. There are differences. Mexico has its own problems, social problems, political problems, but it is a very like warm and very welcoming place in some ways. Here, I really liked, or at least the contrast that I got is things work better. Like I can walk to my house in the middle of the night. A woman can walk to her house in the middle of the night. That's unthinkable in many places in Mexico, or there's way more precautions around safety, which is also one of the reasons that I took also the leap to come to Europe. It comes to a point it is a bit detrimental on your mental health, thinking about all the things that are happening.
And you're also thinking about the future also, like if you eventually decide to have a family here or whatever, you're also thinking that this is a safer place and you would like for them to maybe, I mean, I come from Russia where it's also, we have some not safe environment where I'm seeing that, I'm like, especially what's happening right now, I'm like, I don't want my kids to live in this. I want my kids to actually settle down in here or maybe somewhere else if they decide to. But there, I would at least provide them the opportunity not to to be here.
Yeah, it is a bit, I'm a bit torn on that aspect because of course if you can give them the opportunity to have because this is how it works sadly, a passport that can provide access to more countries, more jobs, more opportunities, you want that for your kids, for your family, for yourself. However, I don't want to be disconnected from my culture. I've even thought that at some point I would go back to Mexico.
You actually thought going back. When was
Yeah.
it? What was like depressing in Barcelona? That you like, no, fuck it all, I'm going back.
Not even something that happened in Barcelona, but the roots are strong. The roots are very, very strong. Like the culture in Mexico, the way people are, their core, the bright side of it, when you don't focus on all the negative things that could be, which every country has their own things. It's lovely. The food, the culture, the way people are is this mixture of all the pre-Hispanic folklore and
The traditions
bit
are
of
very,
the European conquest. Like it's a blend of very emotional people, but also a bit westernized. So, and also there's still many towns and many of those pre-Hispanic traditions and cultures still happening. So I think it is a lovely mix. I really love my country. I love my people. It saddens me to see the things that are happening because it's really hard to find a solution to those, and it's something that's troubled me for many years. At least when I come here, you feel a bit guilty of what can I do to make it better, because if we had the safety or infrastructure that we have in Europe, I would definitely be back home. Not saying that I don't like it here, but there will always be a certain barrier. You will always be a foreigner one way or another, unless you really blend in with Catalan culture.
That's true. Catalan culture sometimes is hard to blend in.
It is a closed culture.
It is.
And you have to feel, I think, a very natural affinity to blend in with that. And I feel very Mexican. There's many things that I respect it, I like it, great, I'm living here. But I like my Latin American spice. Like I know I'm from there.
So you never even try to did you try to identify yourself as local, or you always stayed like, no, I respect you like it, but I'm like Mexican, and I don't even want to say that or pretend that I'm local in here?
I would never say that I tried to pretend. I think I naturally felt like, yeah, my roots are strong.
Yeah, I'm always gonna be like a foreigner, like an immigrant in here, though it's comfortable here.
It is comfortable here. I think I do have a duty to immerse myself more in the local culture. I think so. I think I haven't done that.
A duty, like a must.
Yeah, I think out of respect, I should do it more. That for myself. This is something that I maybe struggle a little bit with, but also I'm not gonna force it. And my whole life has taken a flow or a rhythm where I found myself more with the international culture.
It is more comfortable usually for the people who moved here for expats to kind of go with the international, because whenever you try to blend in with locals, and I'm not only talking about Spanish and Catalans, you usually, it's different in our cultures, in our countries, different tradition, different infrastructure. When you come to Europe with their own standards, and we come from different countries out of European Union, you sort of bring your vibe on everything. Well, in our countries, many things are not.
Yeah.
It's not that it's not correct. It could have done better. Could be done better, way better. But when you come and telling this, and some European are like, yeah, we don't have these problems. We aren't really bothered about this. And you're like, how come?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a barrier, and
yeah. But it's also we tend to define everything by borders and flags. We are very different from one areas of the world to other, but also we're very mixed, and that adds a lot to it.
And that's very visible in Barcelona because it's so mixed in here.
Yeah, it's a very curious phenomenon of there is a massive international community living their day to day. I think we have to respect how things are managed here, the beliefs, the customs, the traditions, because it's their homeland, no? I wouldn't be living here and complain all the time about Catalan. Otherwise, is
I mean, there
back.
are some people who live here and still complain that in our culture this is better. Okay, what are you doing here then?
Exactly.
Like,
That's like
you always
chose
have an
here.
option to go back. I mean,
Yeah, you don't have to pretend, oh, I'm a local, but if you don't like how things are run by the
like
locals,
there's a way out.
find another place.
Yeah. Have you ever tried like bringing your family here? Would you? I don't know if they would want it, or if they would actually be comfortable living here, or like maybe close friends from Mexico would be like, "Hey, tell us how is there? Can we maybe also come?"
Yeah, well, not to live. My family has come to visit me. My mother would never leave Mexico.
Okay.
She's like, no, it's too cold. No, I like she likes.
She likes her
She
stuff.
likes her home country. Like, this is where I live. This is where my friends are. This is how things work. The food, everything. My dad, who is half Spanish because of my grandma, he does like it here. He likes the mix, and he's a bit more afflicted by the political or the social things. Like, it is sad to think that many people back home are like, yeah, stay in Europe, it's great there, things are very chaotic here, it's good for you, we're happy for you that you're
more
going.
stable.
And it's sad to think that way, because whenever I go back, I also value it so much. I value so much being around my friends, being in the places that I grew up in, the food, the people. Like, coming back home, it is a gift. You see it with different eyes after living abroad, especially by yourself for a few years.
Yeah.
And it makes you feel a bit weird, because then you feel also, I start to feel identified as Barcelona being my home after so many years. And then you're a visitor in your own home country, and it's like you're...
What do you call a home for yourself? What is home? Where is it right now?
That's a deep
That's
question.
a deep question.
I think home is where I am the most authentic version of myself. And I call home these places where I find, where I'm nurturing the soul. That's how I see it. Here in Barcelona, I'm doing the comedy shows, I was running the poetry. I found an artistic side of myself that gave me so much personal growth and made me feel at home. I think home is nurturing those parts of you where you are
You're real. You
your
feel
real self.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to also have found that has kept me for many years, more than average on the foreigners, because I'm focused on that, and that really gives me that spark. If I was here in those same office jobs that I was doing back in Mexico, I would have been like, well, what am I doing here? Might as well be surrounded by my people, because people are also home, in my opinion.
It is home.
The people that surround you, that support you, that you support, that inspire you and you inspire, could be a partner, friends, that's home. So even going back to Mexico, being with my family, which families are annoying, we have the right to be annoyed by them, but they're also your people, and it's like, again, like you're your true self with them. You can throw a tantrum. You can call them out on shit, and they can call you out on, and that's home, because you are your most vulnerable self.
Yeah. Do you go often to visit them, or how often do you get a chance to do that?
Luckily, I do go once a year.
Oh.
Once a year.
That's good.
I'm very lucky, because one of my closest friends, he's an airline pilot, so he gets me like
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the flights over the ocean, they're very expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, once a year, that's good.
It's a good trade-off. Sometimes I've spent, especially on holidays, the typical
Like
Christmas and all these things. But I sometimes have spent it here, and I tried also with friends that are here. We try to get together, because I have some friends from uni who are living scattered around Europe.
Okay.
So we try to do at least like a travel together and reconnect, and even seeing them, even
amazing.
speaking in your own accent, and these things land you back to, it feels nice, no?
Talking about accent, your English is amazing. Where did you learn good English? Like, because I imagine if you studied, you worked in Mexico, you spoke Spanish everywhere, and here you also speak Spanish because, I mean, in the culture. But where Did the English appear in your life? How did you learn it?
Yeah, well, my mom was very adamant into us learning, my brother and I have a younger brother, on learning English.
Wow.
That was her, I want you guys to go to a bilingual school. And I grew up in Cancun. I was born in Mexico City,
Okay.
but I went to live to Cancun when I was like 4. My brother was 3. We're like a year and a half apart because my dad is a scuba diver.
Your dad is a scuba diver, okay.
So they were like, let's get out of the city, let's go to Cancun. It is very touristic, and it was, but it's very separated, the touristic area, from where people live. And it was just a small city. It was very beautiful, very safe back then. So yeah, I enrolled in a bilingual school, and Cancun being full of European and American tourists, people learned English as practically as a given. It's like a tool that opens so many doors. Just getting that
great.
language in. So since I was 5 or 6, I was already speaking in English at school, and I really liked it. I liked languages, so I was like, yeah.
But that's great, because basically your mother, who wants to stay in the same country where she was born and she's been living their entire life, and she's not the one who would relocate somewhere else.
Yeah.
And she has this like open mindset and like, no, you kids, you learn English because you don't know what's gonna happen, but you need to learn it.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to like hear it from the person who isn't the one like traveling and relocating, and wow, that's crazy.
I know she's not a big fan of traveling. She's like,
But yet she's like, you need to be. I mean, I think she
You
felt
guys
something.
learn English?
She felt something. I don't know. You're gonna go travel, modern generation. You go learn it. That's good.
this is gonna help you in life. You learn English. And my brother was living in London a few years back, and I remember my mom was just speaking in Spanish. She knows English, but she was like, ¿Cuánto cuesta? How much? How much? You know, she would
How
say.
much?
We're like, Mom, you know how to speak English. She's like, yeah, but I'm tired. You guys know English. You speak for me. Like, that's why I sent you to a bilingual school. So translate the stuff. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, me and my sister, we also get this because we're like kind of forcing our parents to learn other languages. They relocated from Russia to Spain as well. Mm-hmm. And now like I have a boyfriend who doesn't speak Russian. So the way how they're trying to communicate is like Google Translator, gestures. And I'm like, guys, you need to learn the languages. And every time I like push my mom to, she's like, I don't know, English or Spanish, Spanish or English. Like, you need to decide and start learning it already. And she's in between the languages, but she's also like, yeah, I paid for your education, so now you have to translate me. And I'm like, Mom, please.
Something like that.
Yeah.
No, you are the guys who know English. I'm gonna speak in Spanish.
Yeah, like I am comfortable in my own language. And it's funny because like older generation, they're always like, I don't understand how you can express everything so clear in the foreign language, because like it's our language, it's our emotion, it's our phrases, sayings. You can't, they're untranslatable, and you're like, you learn. It's also, I mean, you can pretty much express clearly. Yeah.
It is an interesting thing to observe, because I think we change a little bit with our language.
Yeah, that's true.
There's a little filter that you won't express always the same things, especially like my girlfriend is from Manchester.
Okay.
So my dating life has been basically not with Spanish speakers here in Europe. And there are times where you can express, especially like very strong emotions in your native tongue. It's like, this is what I meant. And sometimes there's like little things that are lost in translation.
Yes.
But yeah, it's true that also the impact of how you learn a language, and you learn to express yourself in that second language. Whereas in Spanish, it could have been more academic in the sense of geography, math, this. English, let's write a story.
But it's also like a way of expression, like some creativity when you learn the languages. It's very different from like finance and maths. That's why I'm not a finance person. What you did for like many years of your life, I'm like, I'm far from that, because I'm far from numbers. But like languages, in my head at least, like I like it a lot. And like trying to learn different languages right now. But it's also very funny because when you're especially trying to talk to beloved people, and when you're trying to express something and the feelings and the emotions, and sometimes you sound so stupid because you're like, that makes so much sense in my language, but doesn't really like English or Spanish. For example, my boyfriend, he always judges my English. He's like, yeah, that does not sound like this in English. I'm like, right, okay. In Russia, it sounds so much more clear. And yeah, I think you get this when you're starting to date a person who's from different cultures, speaks very different language, and you're like, I'm trying my best.
Yeah, I'm trying my best. What I meant was this, but I said this. Yeah, it
like,
happens.
just...
And you can see it in literature too.
Yeah.
When you read Latin American authors, they use Spanish in such a way that descriptions are, they put a lot of their personality into that. You read the Russians, and there's this like, I love it. I've read
It's a
Chekhov
lot of
Chekhov
Chekhov is good to read, but like in Russia we even say that the most complicated authors to read, which is like considered like classic literature that everyone needs to cover in like school, is like Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, and when you read them, that's a pain because they write in these huge sentences and paragraphs, and the way how they describe things, it's like that's a lot of description.
But I find that lovely too, because
that's where
on a first hand, it could be the perception that you have being very basic with stereotypes, like the Latinos were open and that, and then you meet more the Russian, Eastern European people. They're a bit more reserved in their emotions.
Like a little bit
but then they write like, this is everything that's inside. And they find a lot of beauty in like very cold or somber scenarios. I haven't read them all. I read a bit of Chekhov at some point in my life, and I was like, wow, it's like short stories, but he's like...
But Chekhov was the one who's like satiric. He's the most satiric author of Russian literature. We consider him, and he's like, he was writing like very fun and yet dramatic stories and like straight on point. It's not like Peace and War. It's like 4 huge volumes. You need to read it, and you're like, oh my god, a little bit lost because it's Tolstoy was like, yeah, I'm gonna put a little bit of French in here, ta-da. And you're like, nice. But Chekhov was very strict on point, and you also, when you try to read him, you need to understand because there's a little bit like in between the lines what he was trying to mean, but it's cool.
Yeah.
It's short, but yet a lot of sense.
It goes like deep, funny, satirical, where everything was like bam, bam, bam. And you find that with every nationality. I think the authors kind of put, not that per se, but their unique way of describing and all their background, it just is put on paper in such a way. Like you understand the culture a lot more with a fictional story of
it is very true.
That's cool.
How did you jump from chemistry you studied, finance you worked at, to the poetry and comedy? What was this transition and when did it happen?
Well, I've always liked creative writing since I was very young. Like what I explained about my teachers in English, or I always liked drawing and writing comic books or short stories.
Okay.
But culture always pushes you into, but art is a hobby. Art is not, you're gonna starve. You get that put into your head. And I was a very good student in
unstable.
school.
It's freelance probably when you're doing art. It's most likely that maybe, unless you become a well-known artist, it's usually like this.
The perception is always seen of every artistic endeavor from a capitalistic perspective.
Yes.
And I understand why parents or society, especially, I think growing up in Mexico, it's like, no, you have to...
have to get a stable job.
You have to get a stable job because things are very bad and people are corrupt. And I think I was drilled into my head a lot of anxiety around money. Mm-hmm. But I always liked the artistic side. However, at the same time, I have a very organized part of myself. I liked that thing where I could see from A to B, there is a process. A bit of that engineered kind of shaped mind. So I was like dangling between both. In school, I really liked chemistry and math. I found it was like, wow, okay. Yeah, we're going from this and that, and we're measuring everything that's happening in nature with something structured and that makes
I mean,
sense.
it's like perfect. It's like there's not like something wishy-washy. It's black or white. That's
Yeah.
it. It's very
Scientific
strict. Yeah.
method. You have a hypothesis, you throw some steps, results speak for themselves. You cannot go out against that.
Yeah.
I like that. But also I was very creative. I was like, no, but questioning everything. I was like, yeah, but why are we here? What is the point of all of this? Why are we doing this? What's the point of being in this like flesh, no?
You were like very philosophical, deep thinking.
Yeah. I think I went into like I always had that. I always had very vivid dreams. I was very interested in reading about shamanism and lucid dreaming, and it was a big part of my interests on all this spiritual side, all this consciousness, how far it can go, what's the spirit, what's the soul, all these things. Not from a religious point of view per se, but I always have believed there is like a bigger thing beyond what we can prove with science. So I followed that path of academical, okay, I'm going to study engineering because I like numbers and I will have a good paper that will give me a stable job, basically. But I was like, I just gotta finish this degree and yeah, sure, like this will give me something I can earn better money with. I don't regret it because it opened doors here in Europe.
Yeah, as well. I mean, you got your first job because of that.
I found a job in finance when I left uni, all these things, but I always liked writing. I always liked writing. And it was here in Europe where I was in this toxic job that I came to a point that I had saved a bit of money and I just said, I cannot be in this place
You're leaving.
a single day more. I'm leaving. And I had no plan, none whatsoever. I was just like, I didn't come to Europe to fall into the same boxes that were making me feel so limited back home.
In Mexico.
And people talk against that. People tell you that's such a bad idea. You need to have something stable, something in line, something because otherwise expenses and
And you have bills to pay, basically. Yeah.
Bills to pay, understandable. But you have to be also very true to yourself. If you're not happy anymore in a place, you need to take that leap and trust that the whole world is going to open up. We kind of stop looking into what's outside because we're so caught up with our worries, our bills. This job is making me miserable, and this bill to pay, and this and that. And when you let go, I fully trust that things fall into place. I knew that I couldn't be in that place anymore. And I had a bit of money saved up. I quit and I was like, what's next? I don't know. But I was going to this creative writing meetup in Bar Imperfecto in Parallel. I was going there every Sunday. It was a group of us it was a random group. We chose one word and we just wrote for 20 minutes on that, whatever came out. And I started coming back to my writing. I started, oh wow, okay. And then in that group, it's like, oh, there's a poetry night. I'm like, oh, that's great.
You had some like open mic sort of poetry when you were coming to the stage and reading out your poetry, because I remember, because that's when, well, our, like, let's say, story started when I started following you on this poetry, and I started reading how you were reading off the stage, and that was very interesting.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's way back. Yeah,
that's
before
how
comedy.
we started. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was that I just went to one of these open mics. It was run by a very close friend of mine, Maureen. She's now in France, but she started. It was just the initiative to say, hey, this would be a good thing to do. you ask a venue, and the community that started forming, it was very like-minded people. So even amidst unemployment, I found those things that kept me going. And of course, I was anxious about bills, whatever, structure. But these things were teaching me so much. And then Imperfecto, the bar there, needed a bartender. So I just started bartending. So I went from chemical engineer, corporate,
So you
whatever,
went to bartending?
To bartending part-time and writing poetry. And then I started going more and I started meeting people. And then we started running a collective where we were organizing events and I was running then my mics. And I'm like, wow, I don't know where this is going, but this is aligned to myself.
This is going good.
Okay, yeah, I'm not making any money out of being a poet. Okay, I'm bartending. Then I was in a call center for a year and a half, just part-time as well. And I started doing comedy because Imperfecto held also an open mic of comedy. And I went to watch it. I'm like, that sounds really fun.
So how did you write your first joke to go and like actually do the comedy night?
I think I wrote it like way back, even in Mexico, like on my way to I always like watching comedians. Like I was that guy in the classroom that would be pranking around. I was that guy. I was that kid that teachers couldn't get angry at because I had good grades and I
like
behaved,
a little bit
but I was
nerdy in this, but
pushing the limits. And
ouch.
I like pushing those limits. Just a playful nature in me.
Nice.
But whenever I saw that someone didn't like it, like I would stop. I would feel really bad because I have that.
You're very empathetic, like I'm
sorry, I went too far, but this sounds kind of fun. What if, it's a bit like that. It's like a weird thing. So yeah, it was that way. Like I started just going to these places, and honestly, I was seeing people on stage, and I just thought that looks really fun. But the first time I did poetry, I was like so nervous. It was so nerve-wracking, but I felt at home. It was like, I really like. This is so cathartic. This is a way of expressing myself and being inspired by other people, and you connect with people in ways that you didn't expect through something vulnerable like poetry or laughter, like even a joke, just having a moment where everybody is having a good time. That's something that I found here, and it was like, wow, I need to keep doing this. But of course, art. I wasn't earning any money, and I was with a part-time wage, bills to pay. So my path here has been also
up and down.
I find a job, I stabilize a bit, then I go full bohemian, then corporate again, then full bohemian. It's a roller coaster.
But at least you all this time, I understand it's been tough, like different jobs, even different like industries. You didn't jump from finance to finance, or you jumped from finance to bartending, to being in a call center, to I think you were a project manager as well, and like everything. But all this time you kind of are very honest with yourself, because you stick to one part where you were all this time doing creative stuff and writing poetry and then writing jokes and being on the stage. So that's good that you kind of kept it to yourself and you were very honest with yourself, because that's the most important.
No, thank you. I think that's what we all should do.
No, we all should do, but not everyone can.
Stay true. Yeah, we have different opportunities, different circumstances, but for me, art is something that it is accessible to everyone. Regardless of your circumstances, there will always be a part of you that is tapped into that. I call it like not higher self, but that thing, that ether that is just around us, and you channel something that is a true expression of whatever the universe is, or this is very esoteric, but that's my view on it.
That's good.
I think there is just this impulse of creation that brings us back to our genesis as living beings. But we can all access that, and I think finding that makes you reconnect with yourself the same way you would go to nature or you would do all these things. That's accessible to all of us, and that's something that drove me to this is just things I need to express. And of course we live in this world of this capitalistic world, so it's good to also know that you have to take care of those things. And yeah, luckily enough, I always stayed true to that. I want to stay true to that. And right now, I think I found a balance where I still have a corporate job. I went back to corporate because you need
stability. Also kind of allows you not to worry about bills while you're doing creative part of yourself.
Yeah, but also the creative part, luckily, is also picking up.
Oh, that's good.
So the idea would be to fully do my own thing in a way that I can.
I mean, you already started doing your solo shows because I have seen that you travel around Europe, you go also in Barcelona. And did you ever imagine doing, like being a bartender back then, that at one point you're going to be the headliner in, I think, the biggest comedy clubs in Barcelona, like the biggest shows?
I didn't really ever thought about it that way.
But it is happening right now.
It's lovely, and I think it's just, I don't like that question of where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know, those questions.
It's confusing.
Where do you see yourself? And I always hated them, but what I've learned from moving here, from taking these crazy decisions of traveling by myself, jumping on stage, it is, when a door opens and it feels right,
you need to go.
Follow it. I never thought what the end point would be with comedy or whatever I'm doing, because when I think of that, I think I'm putting a pressure into a future that I'm uncertain of. And you put expectations and you stop being true to yourself. It's like a catch-22, because you want to get somewhere, but wanting to get there will actually maybe make you lash yourself or snap you out of your truest self. You have to be every time enjoying it. Like, that's what I tell myself before I go on stage, is it's not about doing the best you can so later you're called to another show. It's about, why are you doing this? Because you love doing it. And I was just enjoying myself so much. And naturally it came to me like, oh, and maybe this, and oh, maybe this joke, and maybe I will talk about this. And it not always goes well, but just following that trajectory in that playful, honest, authentic self, I'm really grateful it has been opening up to what it is going now.
It's going right now. And it's going great. I mean, I've been to many of your shows, but when you go on stage, do you prepare like a list of jokes? Because I've seen many comedians who go with like, I don't know, like a notebook or like a phone, that they have something that they wrote before and they want to kind of like test it on the audience. Do you fully improvise, or you go with something prepared? How does this work in the comedy world?
Well, it depends on the show.
It depends on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have a solo shows for like 40 minutes, obviously you have prepared some material. But when you like do the headliner and you start and you announce other, do you like improvise, or you prepare?
It's a mix of both.
It's a mix of both.
I think with experience, there are jokes or stories that are already I already have them established in my mind, in myself. Like, I know how to share them, and I find the joy to share them that way. However, I think in earlier stages, I would be very methodical, like, oh, I'm going to say this, and this. And you're very focused on, I have to say it well, I have to do the delivery. But as I've evolved, and especially hosting, because I host every Sunday, as a host, I don't like to prepare any material beforehand, because I ultimately have found that for me, comedy especially, well, all performing arts, it is a two-way street. Yeah. It is a dialogue. In what sense?
So you kind of feel what the audience is today, and then you like understand, what can I say, what can I like.
Who am I with?
Yeah.
And how can we connect?
How are you guys here? Good? See? You look young. Are you students? No. All right. Where are you from?
Venezuela.
De Venezuela. A huevo, hermana latina. You didn't raise your hand.
If it's an open mic, for example, I would go with a list of new jokes to see how it feels. But I'm already excited to share that. I'm already like, oh, I want to throw this to you. When it's hosting or sometimes hosting, I want to connect with the audience. So you will see me, I'm like, how are you? Who are you? Tell me about yourselves. And from there, I will connect to something.
But is it easy to like coming up with the jokes? For example, you never know who is gonna come tonight, and like someone who is gonna you're gonna announce them as like your colleagues, but you don't know who's coming in the audience, and you're like always like, I don't know. If, for example, if we would have the whole audience or like one or two nationalities, because you usually play around the cultural differences, would it be very difficult for you? Like if you would point at someone and they're like Italians, and the rest like German, and you're like, okay, we're stuck with two. Would it be very difficult to play around if there is like not a lot of diversity?
Yeah, it does limit the playfulness, but then it wouldn't be about nationality. You go a bit deeper. Yeah, like who are you? Like what do you like? Like who are you with?
But how come you're not afraid to like ask very personal questions like, hey, are you coming like with your date? Who is? And the people start being like very confused, like, are we a date? Are we not? Who are we?
Yeah.
Are we just friends with benefits? And people just like start being lost.
Like I said, I was the guy testing the
limit. So back from school, we're here, right?
I was like, oh, but it's always with a good heart.
Okay.
If I really see that something is going wrong,
and you're like, okay,
I'm not gonna. No. If I see someone really doesn't want to participate, I leave them alone. The idea is to people to enjoy themselves.
Yeah, of course.
I do that out of playfulness, and I put myself in that risky, fun position of asking things that maybe people. Comedy in the end is we're there to hear things that maybe we don't dare saying or we're thinking but we're shy about sharing. So that's a bit of like, okay, let's ask this couple, like, how are you? Come have a good time. But yeah, what's your deal? And what does this guy do that you find like a red flag? Like little things like that kind of make people feel integrated and also vulnerable.
It's kind of like a spark,
It's
also.
like a spark. And I will connect it always to, I tell jokes about my own tragic stories or whatever, like our own disgraces. So it's like, yeah, I also had the date that went weird, or, no, yeah, that's cool. And I always thank them. So.
Have you had like bad experiences? Like, for example, when you were trying to connect to the audience and you're like trying to, find something, and it's like, it's horrible because everyone is, I don't know, upset and not open and doesn't want to communicate. Have you had this, like when you were coming up to the stage and be like, that's a very shitty audience, what should I do?
I wouldn't say shitty audience.
But like not communicating.
I think the most important part of the show, it is, I think it's equally important, both the comedian and the audience, because they're the vital parts of the show for obvious reasons. So I don't like blaming the audience. You can have uncomfortable situations. I've had uncomfortable situations where people are not respectful. And that's something you have to deal with. But it's for the benefit of everyone else in the show.
Of course.
The hecklers or people that are too drunk. It's like, you shouldn't be here. So audience is important, but
also the way how you
if you can't conduct yourself, you have to treat it in a way that it's not killing the mood, because it's all about energy in any show. It's people will not always know with words, but energy is just undeniable. Like you either laugh or not laugh, and that is just all the factors together. Your personal experience plus the energy. So when it gets awkward, everyone's like,
this is weird.
And you have to try to break that ice, like lighten the mood as well. So just addressing it and it works a lot to just be like, okay, this got awkward, but the idea is to have fun, so let's restart. And it's part of it. You will always find these uncomfortable situations, but coming back to the question of the audience being a bit like shy and
Yeah, and
it
modest,
happens.
and it happens.
It happens, so you have to be a bit gentler. I cannot jump and start because they'll be like, oh shit, we're all on the bullseye. So I introduce the show. I like asking. I like knowing who I'm addressing. So is this your first show ever? Like, welcome. The idea is for you to have fun. It's making people feel comfortable. And if crowd work is not what makes them comfortable, you're not gonna go there. You're gonna tell your story. You're gonna be like, we have these acts, and then there will always be someone who
supports you and like
who goes with it and is happy to be like the target to say, and that makes people feel comfortable. And it's also a cultural thing because people will sometimes be having a great time, but they're not laughing like crazy.
Yeah, that's true. Some people don't know how to laugh because they feel like a little bit not awkward, but they don't like to share all of this like huge laughter because like it's manners not to laugh very loud. But have you had like, I don't know, when you are hosting the event and you start the show and you sort of warm up everyone and then someone comes next, was there like any comedian that sort of like cool down the energy and the fire and the like the jokes that they prepared weren't really well made and you understand like I will need to do it all again right now? Have you had this situation when you like see how the comedian is performing and you're like we need to change the vibe right now?
Yeah, absolutely. It happens. It's part of it.
It's part of it.
I think even before the show, it's good to know the order of the lineup. Is very important. If you know the comedians, you know where to put the people. So a strong opener.
You can't really know everyone who's coming. There's always someone new, and you're like, how do you usually schedule this? There's like, I don't know, you put the new, you put the old ones, you put the one that you for sure know that they're gonna be great. How does this usually work?
Yeah, specifically for the ones I host, I don't make the lineups. This is Luis as an organizer, but the idea is having someone reliable to open and to close.
And in between, someone like new to try.
In between, maybe we give a bit less time to someone that is newer, because then there will be someone already warmed the crowd, somebody already did well. So if someone comes with lower energy or kind of struggling, the people are already like, oh yeah, we're here having a good time. Yeah. So you leave them a better spot for them to be like, cool. So yeah, you kind of, but it happens. It happens a lot that someone comes and the jokes don't work. It happens to me sometimes that I go and this is not working, but it's all about energy. If I feel like, oh my God, I am terrible, I'm making a fool of myself, this is horrible, people are gonna feel it the same. If you're like, okay, that didn't work, let's go here, people gotta go like, yeah, that was shit, but we like you.
It's very honest. It's also important to be very honest to the audience and be like, yeah, I tried, okay, it didn't work, sorry.
It's authenticity.
Yeah.
When people try something without authenticity, it never goes well. Think about people like trying to hit on someone or dating when they're trying to be like,
I'm trying to pretend and be better, and then everything blows off and
it's the same.
Would you say that right now in this stage of your life here doing comedy and still having some stable job, are you happy right now?
I am happy. But I want to quit my job. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I'm grateful for the stability it provides.
Yeah.
I'm currently in a place where I've been there for almost 3 years.
That's long.
Yeah, and I think, things change. I really found for a long time something that I really liked about it. So I was actually like, wow, I can't believe I'm really liking my corporate job, but great. Then things changed and now I'm like, I think this is not lasting for much longer. But I do want to save up a bit more before I take another leap into, because I do want to pursue my authentic self. Like that's
the comedy.
whatever it is. It's creating a community, it's doing comedy, going back to poetry, whatever, teaching people, coaching people. Like I like that mentoring part. That's what I was liking about my job. And then things changed a bit in the teams and stuff. I'm happy, but it is something that I know some changes have to be done for me to reach like that level of yeah, I made it. Like it's still a process.
The way how you talk about everything, what you feel behind the stand-up comedy and the poetry, all of this philosophy of being true yourself, I feel like you need to, it's not only coaching and mentoring you need to do a TED Talk about it. Because when you were like saying all of this, like describing how deep it is to you, how important it is, how like vulnerable you become, and I'm like, you need to do the TED Talk about it. I would go to like the TED conference if you would be performing. I'm like, because right now when me and my boyfriend we see who is in the lineup and the comedy, like Hector is there, we're coming. That's so like sweet. We are coming, like that's for sure. But we might not know other people. We already know someone. Will be like, if Hector is there, we're coming. And if this comes out in TED Talk, I'm like, bro, we are going. So that's gonna be for sure. Like you already have at least two people. I don't know, three people.
Yay! No, that's really sweet to hear.
No, but that's honest. That's honest because the way I honestly did not think that our interview was gonna go into this deep part because I mean I don't know you too well, but seeing you perform and whenever someone comes up onto the stage and jokes about, I don't know, their background in the personal life that happened, the dates that were unsuccessful, or like cultural differences, or your joke about Miguel no tiene pasaporte.
Yeah.
This one, learning Duolingo, and I'm like, you always see, I don't know, you always think that the person who's on the stage, yes, you have some prepared jokes. Yes, you're trying to, but you're trying to like communicate with the audience. But you never feel what's beyond that. What's about it? What's the comedy? Because there is one TV show that's called, I think, Marvelous Miss Maisel, about the lady in the 50s, 60s when she was also on the stage, and there was no other women on the stage, and she also had some tough life, and she was like trying to joke about it. But there was also her personal life. And then her part on the stage when she was trying to integrate it, not sober all the time, she was trying to do it. But whenever you come to the show and see all of these comedians, you know that there's always a part of your other life, personal, your stable job, because most of comedians have them. And then you're like, that's interesting to get to know the other part of it, because you don't really know. You come to the stage, you come to the entertainment, you come to laugh also, because you also have your other part of life. When you work, you might be boring, you might be in a toxic job, but you come to this, let's say, moment of peace and joy and laughter, and everyone sort of reunites. But that's good that you shared so much that's beyond it, and it was so honest and so deep and so, I don't know, like very, not even, I can't say dramatic, but it was very poetic, like the way how you say it. It's poetic.
Oh, thank you, Sasha. No, it's actually I appreciate the words. I appreciate this. It's very true, and I think it all comes down to that, to authenticity.
Yeah.
To being true to yourself, and coming back, like it all ties down or ties up. Like, how do you say it? It connects.
Yeah.
To this thing about my job currently, like this thing you mentioned about happiness. I am happy. I have great people around me. I love my girlfriend. I love my friends. I love my family. The fellow comedians I get inspired by, and that we work together. It's such a cool community. Same with the poetry. When I was more involved before, but it comes down to that. If I found myself that when I start feeling withered or like brought down or heavy in an environment I don't like, for example, a corporate job that is not motivating or impulsing me to be better, you start losing those connections to your true self. You start becoming like
like a robot,
like a little robot of yourself.
Yeah.
And the creative spark is missed. You're less connected to whatever those sources of inspiration.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm like, yeah, I think I'm starting to feel again like that heaviness, and I want to reconnect back to my full self. So yeah, sometimes it's a difficult decision because of stability, but I think things open up. I think you have to follow that gut. So I'm also telling myself, quit your job.
Quit your job, come back to yourself. Come on, job.
No, I do treasure as well with time, with age, as we get older. I like that stability and just being able to take those risks in a less brazen way of just drop everything and go into a precarious situation. Is everything's going well. So there is definitely room for me to reconnect back to that 100%. Okay, what else can we do with the things that inspire me? So we'll see.
If you, just to like finish up our interview, if you had to summarize your life in Barcelona, after you moved from Mexico, just in one word, it can be any word, but only one. It can be adjective, verb, noun, whatever, but just one word. What would it be? It can be in any language as well.
Pintoresque.
Pinterest.
Pintoresque, like pintoresca, like colorful.
Okay.
Colorful. Yeah.
That's good.
It's yeah, I think so.
That's beautiful.
Very colorful, very
Different.
everything. All ranges of, all shades, all ranges of colors and emotions. There's been bad times. There's been times you question everything about your existence, and there's times you feel, wow, I'm so lucky to be in this great place. It's ups and downs, but yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for
so
coming.
much.
Thank you for
Of
talking.
course. Thank you, Sasha. It was lovely to be here.
It was lovely to talk to you and to hear everything. Because I did not expect our interview to turn like this.